Well, well, well. As the days draw near the holidays, the stress level for a lot of people keeps going up and up and up. It's stress, it's anxiety. What do I do? How do I get through it? And people have questions, and we may have some answers. Thrilled as always to be joined by Sim from Horizon Within. As always, the website horizonwithin.ca to get a free consultation therapy that you can use. Sim, how are you?
Well, Jim, how are you? It's nice to be back.
Well, it is nice. And we had a lot of feedback from our last podcast, and a lot of people wondering with the holidays drawing near, they've got questions. And do you mind if I relay one of the questions from one of the viewers? Because they're a little concerned. How do I get through, especially from like the 24th or the 28th? There's a 3 or 4 day window, and they're not sure what they're going to do.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So the gentleman's name is Frank in Brandon, Manitoba, and said, Sim, I have to go to Saskatoon to spend 3 days, 2 nights with my in-laws. My in-laws always find things to criticize me about. How do I get through this holiday without being a Grinch and being a team player?
Well, it's an interesting you bring up because it's very common when you're visiting a family away. There's that expectation of being something, right? So, you have this imposter syndrome that you're dealing with where you have to tell them how things are and give them updates of your life. You have this self-questioning of your own self-worth because now, they may have, like, I'm sure Frank has, his wife's side of extended family. So it could be a brother-in-law, it could be a sister, it could be a cousin, it could be, an uncle.
Right.
And they may be more successful, maybe doing something, and now he's got to measure himself to what he does. You could also have this where they are away. So, the in-laws want to be the perfect guest or host. And it kind of runs similar to, remember the movie Meet the Parents?
With the Fockers.
With the Fockers. And Greg Fokker having that stress of going and visiting the in-laws. And
It was like with Robert De Niro's
father-in-law. Yeah, the circle of trust. So, it's very common in that lens. And, when I look at it through like a clinical lens, right? And you kind of go, okay, it's expected to have the state of anxiety. But because I feel that, when you're visiting, it's similar to like having an away game where your resources for self-care and regulation are limited.
They're all back home.
Or now you have to improvise. So like say, well, if you had your room that you go, well, now you're visiting and you're in Saskatoon. Like, it's not like you can go out for a walk or escape and go into the flats. I mean, you have Edmonton, you're used to seeing the mountains, little things like that. So for them, like for Frank, what I feel is like what he's kind of wanting to look for is, how do I survive the family Christmas without losing myself and being so overwhelmed that I'm not enjoying myself?
I guess also real quick at the same time, you've got your partner and you want to stay somewhat harmonious with her on the drive back to Brandon.
Fair, right? And but at the same time, that's the after effect.
Yes.
It's wanting to enjoy the holidays, right?
Right.
Because regardless of how Frank feels, he still wants to have a good time. And, some of the pressure is expected. Some of the pressure is imagined.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the pressure is past past hard experiences. So they're all fair game. When I look at it from a clinical lens, and if I had to like sit with Frank and go, okay, what tools would you need? In CBT, there is a mention of cognitive reframing. And what cognitive reframing is you look at a situation and you have this interpretation of it. And reframing is looking at it in a different way. Now, what's easier said than done, because when you're in the thick of it, like, if you're Greg in the basement and you see that room and you're like, is he CIA? And then it like nervously chewing gum because he's like using it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's a technique that I feel Frank can use, and it's built on the framework of cognitive reframing, but it's called Santa. So, what I would encourage Frank to do is tell yourself, just Santa it. And Santa is an acronym for The S stands for see your environment. So basically, when I take a pause and you go, okay, what's happening? The A is you ask, what is it that I'm feeling? So what he's mentioned here, it's like, I have a sense of overwhelm. You know, I got to do this. I got to do that. I have this expectation. I'm going to be visiting. I'm gone for 3 days. So he's asking, what is it that he's feeling? The N is you're giving it a name. So you're giving a name to the reaction to what you're feeling, not a name to the feeling.
Oh.
So the reaction to the feelings that he's having is he's having a panic attack. That's his reaction to the feeling. So that's what he's named. Now the T is take a breath. So this is where he can just take a deep breath. And then the A is act with conviction. So that's your Sabbath. So in Frank's case, the S would be, to see it'd be like, I'm in the living room and we are just having a few drinks, whatever. So now he's aware of his environment. His A, his ask what he's feeling. He's like, I'm feeling that I have to explain myself, right? Because someone's going to ask me what he do, how's business, whatever X values. And then now he's got to name what it is that he is experiencing of that feeling. And it could be, I am having a mild panic attack because now it's away court. I don't have the same resources. So now he has to take a breath, right? So that when he's taking a breath, what I tell is when you inhale, so you go, it is. And then when you exhale, what it is. So you're just inhaling, it is what it is. And then
That's simple enough.
And now you have to act with conviction, because you have to empower yourself. And that is where you have to tell yourself, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. No. And you repeat, recycle. That is cognitive reframing. That's CBT at work, because now what you've done is you become aware of the environment. You've named what it is that you're reacting to. You've grounded yourself by just saying it is what it is. And then you're giving yourself a true act with conviction of saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
And with this, by using these techniques, Sim, my thought is if the father-in-law or the uncle, whoever the relative is that's sort of pushing your buttons, if you're using these techniques and not getting the reaction they're expecting, doesn't that dissipate what they're trying to do?
You're always, because it's an away game, right?
Right.
Like because in your mind, you know that it's being on the road.
Right.
Or your resources are limited. Now it requires a deeper conversation. So for me to understand, okay, what specifically would be that you would need and not. So the Santa is more for like just your topical, get you through the holidays kind of thing, because each family is unique.
Right.
Each family has their own depths and layers.
Yes.
Right. It's kind of like, you could be the Griswolds for crying out loud.
Right.
Right. And how do you address that? Because, or when they meant go to meet the Fockers, right? Like it was a complete mismatch in terms of both families. So it becomes individual. That's what I would say.
Because the one thing that I know from everyone I've spoken to in the years I've lived, and anyone who has any kind of background, when you're visiting that away game, there is that, am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right thing? So there's these tensions and anxieties that are building up. I can see by using these techniques, it sort of centers you, calms you down. It is what it is. And all of a sudden, you're not stressed about the situation.
Because it is what it is.
It is what it is. You're there. It's a few days, then you're going to be gone, right?
And now you have to drive back. And guess what? On the drive back, you don't have to re-question because it is what it is.
Yeah. And that's actually useful in any situation, not just a holiday situation. Yeah. I love that. Do you mind if I have another question for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Lisa Nepean is going through what I think a lot of people go through. He has to host over the holidays. And her question, Sim, is everyone, when I host, comes over. No one helps me. No one ends up paying for anything. And I am doing everything. How do I deal with a house full of family and friends who just really don't help her?
It's sad. It's because one of the pleasures of playing host over the holidays is the act of that graciousness, that sense of like warmth, that come on in, you know, here's an eggnog, or like, you know, and and what I feel with Lisa is that even though she has home advantage, she still has to be on the defense. So there's no opportunity for her to feel the holidays, to celebrate the holidays, because now all of a sudden, much like Frank, she's tackling with the sense of anxiety. She's tackling with the sense of people pleasing, the sense of affordability, the sense of self-worth, you know, keeping up with the Joneses. And like it can go on and on. But at the end of the day, much like him, the ability to enjoy the holidays are being taken away.
Because invariably, when you're hosting, someone's going to say, do you have this to drink, this to eat? No, I don't. Oh. And then you're like, oh, geez, I didn't know that. I thought I prepared everything.
Or you go over the top. You're going to make sure like, okay, fine. You know, Aunt Betty likes that Pinot Grigio and I know nobody will ever drink it. And she's going to have a 4-ounce glass, but I got to buy the whole bottle. Yeah. So it's the variables are infinite in that, right? Now, how would we bring the same technique to Lisa, right? Because scenarios may sound similar, but now you're hosting. So it's the pressure is a little bit different.
Because the stress is still there, right?
The stress is still there. The anxiety is still there. And so now with Lisa's case, it would be something like, okay, what am I seeing? I'm hosting, right? Okay. Then you're asking, what am I feeling? You know what? I'm feeling that I feel isolated because I have to carry the burden of not only spending or buying the investment of the party, but I also have to host, right? And now, because there is no appreciation back, I have so low self-worth, right? And it'll go on and on and on. And now you're naming your reaction to what you're feeling. And here it's similar, right? Like there's a sense of panic attack because things are out of control. Things, you can't manage it all, right? And now the overwhelm has gotten to a point where you're in a state of panic because it's the 22nd of December and you're a day and a half away. So whatever you have is you have. Same thing. Now, you know, you take a breath. So it is what it is.
What it is.
Right. And by just doing that cycle, you can do as many as you like. When you act with conviction, what are you saying? When the going gets tough, the tough get going.
But what is it about people? Because I always thought it's human nature. Hey, I'm coming there. You're hosting. Is there anything I can do to help? That's a simple thing. Often the hosts say, no, I'm fine. But don't you think they appreciate the gesture of you saying, hey, is there anything I can do to help?
Guest etiquette, I feel sometimes is lacking, and it's individual.
Mm-hmm.
I don't attribute guest or host culture to any specific culture. I think it's individual specific. Some of us get to experience it in our younger years, so we kind of like pick it up through just seeing it, you know, whether it's at our family environments, whether it's in our social circles. And some of us unfortunately miss those opportunities, but we have an opportunity to learn because all you got to do is go to ChatGPT and go, I'm going over to what are good host gifts? What is a good way to be a good guest?
Yeah.
Right. And it'll give you your top 2 or top 3. And, you know, the top 3, any host is you give them something, right? It could be as small as like a flower arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be grandiose. And then you don't make it difficult for the host, right? And you make sure that you don't make a mess or you leave something where they have to do extra work. Those are your top 3. I mean, ChatGPT will give you 20 of them if you really want to be like, I'm going to my sister-in-laws and like, you know, you feed her personality and then you go, okay, you know, she's like, you know, a very controlled person and whatever the X values are. And then it'll just give you that. So.
Yeah, it's funny that we're at a point in the society, Sim, that people have you resort to ChatGPT to wonder how I should be a good guest when I go for the holidays.
As long as you're getting knowledge.
Yeah.
And as long as the other person is able to then feel, because there's a reward to hosting.
Mm.
There's an actual, like, because it's one of the very few occasions where other than, I would say Thanksgiving, And then birthday, Easter's hit or miss in
Yeah.
terms of your big arcing holidays where you pull families together. You really don't have many of them. And Christmas has its own unique, your own want, because it's like,
Is it also not a way for some people to express their love of family and friends by hosting?
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's an act of doing, right? One thing I will say, because it comes down to this. When you're dealing with family over the holidays, it's like any given Sunday. It's about the inches.
Right.
And the inches are everywhere. So whether you're hosting or whether you're visiting, if you could just frame it as, hey, it's a home game. This is the away team that's coming. So now you can then go, and I don't want to make it into a sports cliche because it's a Christmas.
They do play the NFL on Christmas Day.
That's why, it's like any given Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And it's about the interest, right? So it's literally, you look at the persons next to you. So whether it's your family members and you're looking and going, okay, how do we claw the inches so that we can be the best host? And because it is what it is, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Now that contention, even though it's there, you've reframed through CBT and reframing.
Yes.
By saying, I need to get through this. And now you've created that safety parameter because you're going to have the violations. You're going to have the violations whether you're visiting or whether you're. So, and it's not something that I'm saying that you should accept, but it is what it is.
But much like Frank dealing with it discussing it on the drive home, then Lisa, after everyone leaves, maybe has a discussion with her inner circle about what just happened as she hosted.
Yeah. And, because there was a pre-game talk, you have a post-game talk.
Right.
Right. And dinner could be your halftime.
Right. Exactly.
And now the idea is you put them in compartments.
Yeah.
And because now you've framed it with anxiety, now what you've done is you've compartmentalized it. Now you can kind of go, okay, what do we need to prepare? Because you know who's coming, right? So you know where the variations are going to be. And, it's not about control. It's about direction.
And mapping out, okay, if I have these 4 things ready, the day should go pretty smoothly.
Right. And your mantra is what? It is what it is.
It is what that's so brilliant. And just that little breath, it is, and then out what it is. It really sort of centers you, doesn't it?
So it grounds you. And then anytime you're in the midst of it, that's why I said just sana it. Because the minute you can tell your mind, all I need to do is sana it. And what are you doing with sana? You're bringing awareness. You're scanning your environment. You're taking the breath, and you're acting with conviction.
Are we post-COVID almost relearning social skills and etiquettes that maybe, as you alluded to earlier, that were once thought as basically standard for everyone? A lot of people have to relearn them and be reminded of them into the holidays.
In a way, yes. But also, there's also a greater want to celebrate. I feel there's more resources to be able to learn. At the end of the day, it just boils down to an opportunity to learn. There's no disadvantage. There's never a need to have perfection because it's a new experience, right? You could be someone that just made a new social circle and you've been invited to it. And you may not truly know the hosts that well, so you may not know what to give them. You can chat GPT it, right?
Yeah.
Because what I'm saying is it's not a nemesis, it's a resource.
Yeah.
Use it. But use Sana. Even if you're visiting, right? So you could be a person that's visiting and it's a social circle. It could be where your colleagues from work have decided to invite you and this is the first time you're doing Christmas with them, right? Sana it.
Because we just had a work event at another place I'm at, and I really had a lot of trepidation going into it, Sim, because I wasn't really sure. They had some new management people. And I decided I'm going to give it a chance. And then without realizing I did it is what it is going into it, ended up being a pretty good time.
Right.
I'm like, that was pretty good. I enjoyed that.
As long as your game's not going in overtime.
Yeah. Fortunately, did not. And no, I didn't throw more traffic away from the arena. But this is why we check it out, horizonwithin.ca.
Yeah.
Sim, thank you as always.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.